Andrew is a high school student living in Seattle with his sick mother and abusive father. Andrew is an outcast, having few or no friends and being relatively unknown in his school. Tired of his father's abuse, Andrew decides to buy a camera as a sort of deterrent for his father. Andrew tells his father that he will be recording everything from that point on. Andrew visits his bedridden mother, Karen, and she wishes him a good day at school. Andrew's cousin and best friend, Matt, picks him up and they both head to school. Matt gives Andrew advice from philosophers he has been reading, and Andrew teases him. Andrew spends some time recording his school, showing the camera where he eats and hangs out. Some teenagers bully Andrew and take his camera, mocking him. They eventually return it after ridiculing him. On the way home, Matt invites Andrew to a party, but Andrew declines. Matt insists on making Andrew believe that going out could do him a lot of good. Andrew reluctantly agrees. At home, Andrew reviews his recording when his father, Richard, barges into the room. Richard slaps Andrew in the face, knocking him to the ground. Richard, angry, tells Andrew that he must do as he is told. Later, Matt and Andrew arrive at the party and split up. Andrew records the party, watching people have fun and dance. He then sees Casey, a girl who is also filming her day for her vlog. Matt appears and tries to impress Casey awkwardly, using philosophical jargon. Andrew gets into trouble when a guy accuses Andrew of filming his girlfriend. Andrew leaves the party and goes to the parking lot. He cries as he cleans the dirt from his camera. Andrew is frustrated, feeling that he doesn't belong to the crowd. Steve, the popular boy running for class president, calls Andrew over and invites him to join him and his friends. Steve says that he and Matt found something in the woods and asks Andrew to film what they discovered. Andrew joins Steve, and they arrive at a hole in the middle of a clearing. They hear strange noises coming from the hole, and Steve dives in to explore. They explore deeper into the hole and find a cave containing a huge glowing crystal. It begins to vibrate, and everything starts to shake before it goes dark. A few weeks later, Matt, Steve, and Andrew are in a backyard throwing a ball to each other. When Matt throws the ball to Steve, the ball veers to the right and hits Steve on the side. Matt then throws the ball to Andrew, and Andrew hits the ball in the air with his mind. Andrew's nose begins to bleed, and he drops it. The three of them then play with Lego pieces inside the house, making the pieces levitate without touching them. It seems that the mysterious crystal has given them the power of telekinesis. Later, they decide to go back to the hole, but see that the earth has completely filled it in. Authorities arrive and tell the boys to stay away from the site. On the way home, Steve and Andrew talk about their families. Andrew tells Steve about his mother and his father, who used to be a firefighter. An accident injured Richard, and he now stays home and receives government insurance checks. Steve also shares some home troubles with his parents. At home, Andrew practices levitating his camera. He hears his father on the phone, begging someone for more medical help for Karen. Richard says he can no longer afford Karen's medication, but her condition is worsening. The next day, Andrew takes Karen out for a stroll at the marina, and the duo enjoys lovely weather. Later, the boys are outside again, practicing their powers, throwing rocks into a lake. Andrew asks Matt if he likes him, and Matt says yes, but that he used to find Andrew difficult to communicate with. Andrew then asks if he thinks they can do more with their powers. At school, Matt theorizes that their power is like a muscle they have to strengthen to make it stronger. Last night, he says he managed to lift his bed off the ground without getting a nosebleed. If they lift something too heavy or try to do something too complicated, it will stress their power, and their noses will start to bleed. He suggests a slow progression to build their strength. Andrew then suggests going to a public place to practice their skills, and they decide to do this at a grocery store. They start to mess around with people, playing harmless pranks. Andrew makes a shopping cart roll, Steve scares a child by raising a toy, and Matt tries to take a piece of gum from someone's mouth, but ends up hitting them. At a diner, Andrew tries to stab Matt with a fork to show how their powers can even protect them from sharp objects and projectiles. Andrew then manifests an image of the Virgin Mary on his plate of pancakes, scaring one of the waitresses. The boys are having fun, using their powers foolishly. In the parking lot, Steve tries to pull a prank on a woman. He manages to move her car to a different parking spot. Matt and Andrew are impressed, noting that this is probably the heaviest thing they have ever lifted. Steve's nose starts to bleed heavily, but he claims he feels fine. The woman returns, and they all laugh at her confusion. Later, they are driving home when a truck behind them starts honking. Andrew intervenes, trying to make the truck swerve a little, but ends up pushing too hard. The truck veers off the road and tumbles down a cliff, landing in a river. The boys run to help, and Stephen dives into the water to rescue the driver. They then call the police. Steve is visibly shaken by what happened, and Matt confronts Andrew. Andrew appears indifferent and distant as Matt approaches him, saying that he put someone in grave danger. Matt says their powers are becoming stronger and more difficult to control, and suggests setting rules. The next day, they meet Steve at a dump and see that he is levitating above them. He encourages them to try too. Matt goes first, but has trouble getting off the ground, falling several times. Andrew then tries and manages to lift off, elated that he can float. He joins Stephen, and the two celebrate. Later, the boys are flying through the clouds. They speed through the sky, hovering over each other at incredible speeds. They even start playing football, catching in midair. They slow down, floating above when suddenly a plane flies close to them. Steve gets knocked down, and Andrew flies to save him. He grabs Steve, but they continue to fall. Andrew slows down seconds before they hit the ground, and they land unharmed. Matt joins them, and they all start laughing and celebrating together, happy to be the first humans to fly. They then gather for a sleepover at Steve's house, and Andrew tells them that day was the best day of his entire life. The next day at school, they plan to take a trip around the world, flying to their dream destinations. Steve says he is planning a weekend trip to Hawaii, and Andrew says he wants to go to Tibet, thinking about how beautiful and peaceful it is, saying the monks there have achieved a high level of enlightenment. Matt later meets with Casey, giving her a donation. He says it is for the drought she mentioned in one of her vlogs. Casey then tells Matt that he could just mail it. Casey asks Matt why his sudden change, saying he used to be too smart to relate to, and now he seems to care a lot about worldly issues and is starting to go out with people. Matt says he has changed, and that he now has a better understanding of people. He tells Casey that he also wants to go out with her, but Casey shuts the door in his face. Andrew and Steve are together on top of a building, and Steve is impressed with Andrew's use of power, seeing that he can expertly levitate his camera. Andrew then says he has been alone for a long time before they gained powers. He didn't used to hang out with Matt, even though they are cousins. Steve then suggests they enter the school talent show, telling Andrew that he will help him with the performance. Andrew then prepares for the talent show, showcasing his outfit to Karen. As he leaves, Richard calls him and says he is suspicious of him. Richard says he knows Andrew is up to something. At the talent show, Matt operates the camera and he finds Casey, who is also recording the event. Steve and Andrew appear on stage and start their magic show. The illusions and tricks are basically child's play for Andrew, using his telekinetic abilities. The two put on a grand show, with their schoolmates cheering throughout the performance. Matt and Andrew then go to a party at a house where everyone greets them. Finally, Andrew experiences what it is like to be noticed and appreciated. The whole event is very validating for him. Andrew meets a girl with pink hair at the party, and they start talking and hit it off immediately. Andrew enjoys the party while Matt stays with the camera. He leaves a sweet message for Andrew, but Casey sees him and invites him to leave the party. Steve becomes the new cameraman, and he searches for Andrew. He goes upstairs to find that Andrew has vomited all over the girl he was with. Steve enters laughing, but Andrew does not take the situation lightly. He yells at Steve, telling him to get lost. The next day, Andrew messes with a spider before making it levitate and splitting it into pieces. Richard is then seen looking into Andrew's room and seeing the camera. Richard then confronts Andrew about spending too much money on a camera while they can barely pay for his mother's medication. Richard continues yelling at him, and Andrew responds, irritating Richard. Richard then attacks Andrew, holding him, but Andrew reacts, using his powers to overpower Richard. Andrew says he could crush him if he wanted to, and then throws him to the ground. Richard lies groaning and thrashing. Meanwhile, Matt is with Casey when his nose begins to bleed, even without using his powers. Andrew is in the middle of a storm, crying. Steve shows up, saying his nose started bleeding and that he heard Andrew's voice calling him. Andrew tells Steve to leave him alone, but Steve tells Andrew to calm down and come back down. Andrew gets irritated with Steve, and a lightning bolt hits him. Time passes, and Andrew records a funeral. He sees Casey and Matt attending, along with their other classmates. Steve had been struck by lightning and died. Andrew then sees Matt staring at him. After the ceremony, Matt confronts Andrew about what happened to Steve, questioning how he was struck by lightning when there were no reports of lightning. Matt demands that Andrew tell the truth, but Andrew remains silent. He avoids the confrontation and flies away. The next day, Andrew is back at Steve's grave, apologizing. He says he didn't know what happened and must have lost control. He returns to the hole where they gained their powers and sees that it is now covered in grass, and a pattern has begun to form around it. Andrew then goes to school and sees people mocking him for vomiting at the party. He sees the pink-haired girl with her friends, and her friends mock him too. The bully also teases him, imitating him throwing up. Andrew is overcome with anger. He approaches the bully and knocks out several of his teeth. In a bathroom, he shows the camera the pieces of teeth and describes how he got them. In a junkyard, Andrew speaks to his camera and talks about evolution and the concept of a top predator. He talks about how predators do not feel guilt when killing their prey, and how humans don't feel guilt when stepping on ants or crushing flies and mosquitoes. He equates himself to a human top predator. His abilities can harm people, but to him, that's just how things are. He then crushes a car behind him with ease. Matt bursts into Andrew's room, discovering what happened at school with the bully. He emphasizes how important it is for them to stick to their rules for their own good, as they are becoming too powerful. Matt then warns Andrew that he will have to intervene if Andrew does not stop hurting people. They get into an argument, and Matt punches him, but Andrew grabs his fist. Matt then leaves immediately. Andrew goes to the pharmacy to pick up more medication for his mother, but the pharmacist says he doesn't have enough money. With no other option, Andrew decides to take more drastic measures regarding his mother. He grabs his father's old firefighter suit and goes out to force people to give him money. He first targets the men on his street who always mocked him. He takes them all down, slamming them against cars and the pavement. In seconds, he leaves them all unconscious and takes all their money. He then goes to a gas station, disables the cash register, and takes all the cash from the register. Andrew disarms the shotgun and it ends up firing into a gas tank. The tank explodes, and the cashier and Andrew are thrown back. Andrew catches fire and loses consciousness. Andrew is hospitalized, and Richard is called. Richard enters Andrew's room and starts to cry. He tells unconscious Andrew that Karen has died. He then blames Andrew for her death, believing she wouldn't have died if she hadn't been looking for Andrew. He starts screaming at Andrew, ordering him to apologize for Karen's death. His yelling gets louder, and Andrew finally wakes up, creating a hole in the hospital wall. Matt is at a birthday party when his nose begins to bleed. He immediately knows something is wrong with Andrew and sees a news bulletin about an explosion at the hospital. He immediately leaves with Casey, driving to the hospital. They arrive at the hospital and see Andrew grabbing Richard and throwing him. Matt flies and catches Richard, with everyone watching him fly. They get back in the car, but Andrew finds them and takes them to the Space Needle before releasing the car. Matt grabs Casey and safely takes her down. People are recording everything on their cell phones, and the police and medical personnel rush to handle the situation. Matt flies to Andrew, trying to calm him down and convince him to stop. Andrew says he has always been treated terribly, and this is his chance to get revenge on everything that has happened to him. Matt promises that he will help him change his life and says they can run away and start a new life. Matt keeps talking, but Andrew throws a bus at him. Andrew then lands on a building, and Matt gets up to fight back. Andrew and Matt fight, being thrown all over the city. They crash into roads, cars, buildings, apartments, and houses, showing no signs of slowing down. They throw vehicles at each other, and Andrew does not care about human life. Matt still tries to convince Andrew to stop, but the police surround them. Matt gets hit, and Andrew throws the police back before flying away. They both land in a square in front of a building, where the police surround them again. Matt pleads with Andrew to stop, but he doesn't listen. The police open fire, but Andrew stops all the bullets. Andrew then starts screaming, and the buildings behind them tremble violently. Glass and concrete shatter, and debris falls on them, Matt pleads with Andrew not to hurt the police, but Andrew is beyond help. He realizes that there is no other way but to kill Andrew. Matt grabs the statue behind Andrew and aims a steel lance at him before impaling him through the chest. Everything falls silent, and Andrew hangs lifeless in the middle of the square. The police approach, but Matt flies at speed and escapes. Time passes, and Matt is seen flying above snow-covered mountains. He talks to a camera as if it were Andrew and points it at various Tibetan monk temples. He says goodbye, bidding farewell to Andrew.